Hello and welcome to Ursine Combo Lad Audio. This is, of course, the podcast from the FGC at UCLA and all of our various friends. I'm joined here today by EGP Tekken. He's a big Guilty Gear player, as you can tell from the name, and also by Kurushii Drive, who huge doesn't play any fighting games player, but he used to. Thanks for joining me, guys.
Hello,
Yo,
hello.
what's up? Yep. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, Kurushi, for joining. Thanks, EGP. And so today we're going to be talking about puppet characters. When we started this, the idea was that we had a poll in the Cord that had selected who everyone's favorite puppet character was. But in that time, we've since fallen into politics, the scary realm of politics. I'd kind of want to bring up the poll last. Maybe one direction that we can go in first is just the tautology of the puppet character. Like, who is actually a puppet character, really? Like, we had a lot of people saying like Minot is a puppet character. What do you think, EGP? What are the requirements to really be a true puppet character?
Um, so personally, I think there's kind of like different levels of like a puppet character. I guess more like a spectrum because there'd be some characters where you have complete control of the puppet. For example, I think Carl is probably the uh, most prominent example of like having complete control of your movement. And then in the same game, you have someone a little more automated, which would be Relius, a little bit easier to use. And and then you'll have someone. I think the third pup character in the game is her name Mercury. I'm forgetting her name.
Celica.
Celica. There we go. And then you can almost argue she's not a puppet character. But I do think there is kind of a difference between like a summon character and like a puppet character. Where there'll be some characters where they like summon a dude on the screen, and that minion or summon or whatever will kind of fight for them, and if
Yeah, that makes me think of Jacko and Galgos, who,
yeah, Argos, like
Gargos,
Jacko.
yeah.
So you have,
Do they count? I think they're right on the edge, so that's a tough one for me.
I think they're on the very low end of it, where because it's so automated for you, you really are missing out on the experience of controlling, two characters, or sometimes I'd say 1.5 characters, just because usually the puppet is not as complicated as the main character,
So you sound
or
like
sometimes the
a
main.
puppet purist. You don't, these aren't
Yeah,
real. They're not real puppet characters.
yeah, they are fun though, and I think they can kind of introduce someone to like the concept of puppet characters if they're too afraid or they don't know where to start. Because Carl can be like a character like Carl, or someone like Zato in the pre before Shrive would be a little too intimidating for someone.
In our poll, we went for the 10 top puppet characters, and almost all of them were you have basically at some point you have direct control, with Relius probably being the weakest of those. But almost every other puppet character, you can hold a button and move the puppet around and kind of position them. And they usually have a pretty large set of moves. That's one thing about Relius, though. He has an unusually large set of moves for the puppet, even though he doesn't have direct control of its positioning.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that Shrive Zato, in my opinion, is more similar to Relius actually.
That's
He was
true,
more
yeah.
similar to Carl before. But now he's a little more easier to use in Shrive. I think he's maybe one of the harder characters to use in Shrive. I haven't played after like Asuka like came out and like the new character, so I don't know for sure. But he was definitely a level above like someone like Soul or Kai.
Yeah, he's
And
definitely the one of the hardest characters in the game for no reward. No.
I hear things about his placements on tier list, and I get disappointed.
Yeah, they a few people got a little too good with him, so they nerfed him and killed him. But yeah, he's still a you can still move Zato around in Strive. You can still move Eddie around in Strive. You can do some positioning. Because that game is so claustrophobic, you don't really do that as much, and you have less ability to keep the person locked down while you're moving Eddie around. So often you'll just kind of go for these sandwich setups that are sort of auto spaced and auto timed.
Yeah. And one thing I do wonder if you guys are looking up is not only that like the difficulty of just like using one and controlling one, but also like from a game balance perspective, how strange these characters are to balance, um, and how broken some of them are.
I mean,
I think that's pretty
you're a
interesting.
puppet purist, but I think when you say that, I immediately think of Ed, who isn't a puppet character, but he has like a slow moving ball, and he's been the target of like 3 rounds of nerfs because of this stupid ball, because of what it allows him to do. Like it's sort of this brand of character is very easily breaks the game if it has just a little too much. I think another
Yeah.
good example of that is Nier in GBVS. She dropped with the Rising update, and she had it was a puppet character with a DP, which was a choice, and people really hated her. They hated playing against her. She really suffocated the meta.
Yeah. I always joke that Zato is or Ogawa, the Zato player, always ruins Zato. I don't mean that like seriously, but you will notice in the earlier versions of Guilty Gear games, Zato is usually pretty strong. Then he gets broken, and then they have to nerf him because he's dominating like the tier list and tournaments. And then usually at the final patch of the game, he's like all right or maybe low tier. Just because it is pretty difficult to balance these characters, and like you said, they kind of do break the balance of the game. I think puppet characters are pretty difficult to balance.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really hard
Uh,
to do well. Yeah, but
uh,
they're before we move on from the definitions, Karushi, did you have any thoughts on what is truly a puppet character?
I do. And first of all, I have to disagree with EGP that
Uh-oh.
puppet characters are on a spectrum. No, it's a puppet character or it isn't. I think a lot of discrepancies occur in modern fighting games with what may or may not feel like a puppet character. But part of that is that a lot of modern fighting games have deviated from the traditional style of designing characters, where their movesets are focused around like a central gimmick, like how BlazBlue characters are. I feel like nowadays there's a lot more homogenization, especially in terms of making the character's moveset like generic or multifaceted or well-rounded. We see that in games like Uni 2, in Grand Blue Fantasy, and some other games. But anyway, my idea of a puppet character is basically a character that can control and implement familiar objects with a full degree of control that is separate from the primary character's actual moveset. So if the and bonus points if it can be controlled simultaneously and without an animation. I mean, even with an animation, it can still be considered a puppet character. I could think of 2 examples from Bleach Dark Souls where Urahara Kyusuke can summon basically his employees to do attacks, and Kyusuke is still able to attack during them, but he has an animation for the initial summon. So I would consider him to be a puppet character, as well as Mayuri, who can summon Nemu.
Are all
But
tag
no,
fighters puppet games?
no, definitely not. Um, the the thing about tag fighters is that you get only one move out when you summon the other character, and sometimes you're still able to do other actions during it, but you're not able to access like a full separate move set in the same way. And I think that greatly reduces the degree of puppetry that's possible. Now that being said, obviously active switch kind of makes that a different story. You can consider BB Tag's active switch to be a puppet character game entirely. And similarly, a lot of people would say that Persona has a good representation of puppet characters possible, but I don't know. I don't know if I agree with EGP's definition here. So
I'm a little more towards the purist end. I was hesitant whether to even add Zappa to this list, even though he clearly falls under that definition. To me, I think a puppet character is really defined by whether they can put you in a convincing sandwich or not. And they have different attacks in that sandwich. If it's just a set play pressure where you can't press because there's something on top of you, that doesn't count. It has to be highs and lows coming at you from both sides. That's really tells me that you're in a puppet situation.
Yeah, for sure. I think if obviously Blaze Blue just sets that up perfectly as well. Blaze Blue and Guilty Gear both. But a game like Uni 2 or just Uni series in general with Chaos, Chaos is like at the very precipice of being a puppet character because although he's able to control Ozzy and still use his own moves, he doesn't have like a full level of all right, I can set up animations, I can put you in like a high-low mix-up because that's just not like a thing in Uni 2. But he's still like for all intents and purposes a puppet character. Just that he's like very close to the brink.
Yeah, he's very, very close. Um, okay, so I'll take a moment here and go to the poll, and I'm going to discuss our number one loser, our person who got 0 votes, the only puppet to get 0 votes in our poll. It was the puppet name for puppeteering itself, Puppeteer from DNF Duel. It has as many votes as current players of the game, unfortunately. This was actually a pretty cool puppet character. I don't know if any of you got to try it out. She
I
actually had like
played
a lot of stuff.
I played like 10 minutes of this character.
Yeah, she had like really long range on a lot of her moves, and she could. I don't know. I think her puppet thing was kind of interesting, but she didn't feel very strong in the meta. She could easily run out of her puppet juice, it felt like. And this was a game where there were like TODs, so you didn't want to run out of puppet juice. It was not a good situation if you ran out of puppet juice. So, needless to say, she was not that popular, so she's coming in at 0. Um, okay, maybe we can go ahead and hit the politics right away, if since you guys are still with me. Uh, all right. So recently, of course, some foolish Blaze Bluians have decided that perhaps Carl is too powerful because he's a puppet character. He breaks all the rules. He does too much. He doesn't have a DP, but he also hadn't really won mini majors or anything like that for a long time. But still too powerful. So they called for his ban, an actual character ban in a game that's been out for 8 years now, 9 years. It's pretty impressive that they would call for this. I'm gonna assume you both support the ban. Two big puppet haters. What do you guys think? What do you think about Killikobes and Monarch? Are they looking the fool?
Okay. So first of all, I'm very surprised at some of those players that agreed and signed on to that petition. I didn't read most of the document. I kind of just skimmed it, but I knew that it could be summed up by a skill issue, so I'm not gonna bother. But anyway, is Carl too powerful in BlazBlue? No, absolutely not. You got to look at the character in the context of the game. He's not even the most egregious character in set play in the first place. I feel like there's several characters I can name that are stronger than Carl. Lychee, potentially Rachel as well, potentially Kokonoe, potentially Izanami, right? Like the list goes on. And a lot of these characters have seen way more tournament success and results than Carl has the entirety of Central Fiction's competitive lifespan. And part of it too, I feel like Carl has always been like the upper echelon of like potential the character. If you really master him and put the time into him, you can truly like tear through pretty much everybody. But that being said, like again, it's Blaze Blue. It's going to be a grimy game, and he's not like again, he's not even like the best at doing the grime. He does have the unblockable setups. He does have the sandwich mix-ups that are pretty much impossible to block. But again, like it's Blaze Blue, right? If this were in Street Fighter, I don't know, Street Fighter 6, okay, fine, we can complain about that. But it's in Blaze Blue Central Fiction. Come on now.
For my part, why'd they stop at one character? Let's ban fucking 5 or 6. We can fix this game. We can fix it. We can ban Susanoo. We can ban S. We can ban Lychee. I mean, she hasn't done that much lately, but she's super fucking annoying. Way more fucking annoying as a puppet character, I think. That damn stick.
We should
a stick.
We should ban every character except for Noelle.
All Noelle fights the true footsies as she slides into your foot with her gun.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like to be honest, like yeah, I agree. We could ban so many characters before we ban Carl Clover. Like, okay, there was an argument for that in 1.0 CF, which was several eons ago by this point, and most people that are in this community probably don't even weren't even like playing Blaze Blue Central Fiction around that time.
Is that
But
what
yeah,
this
Carl.
was? Is they made the Google Doc in 2016 and they're like, we should really finish this. Guys, let's finish this. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, like again, like it would have been reasonable back then. I mean, I still wouldn't agree with it, but it would have been more reasonable, right? Because at least there was like a precedent for it. Like not only did Carl um come off of a Evo final, but also like he legitimately like had to be nerfed, right? And the unblockable subs were way more free, way more frequent, and also Nirvana was a lot tankier and like harder to bring down. So there was more reason to do so at that time. Now, one thing that's like kind of important here to mention is that a lot of the top tiers in Blaze Blue Central Fiction are very hard to play. So part of the reason why it's even hard to make a ban argument is that someone's got to like put in the work and like really have like the hatred of the character they're playing to be willing to like get them banned. Now, a case could have been made for that for Izanami back in like 2019 when a lot of people in Japan were playing her. But even Izanami with how strong she is not really ban worthy.
Yeah, she's falling
Like
off.
again,
I remember
yeah,
the conversation around her and Ribcage and everything. It's like, oh yeah, people are like, you just throw her.
yep. I mean, no, I mean, don't get the wrong idea. Like Ribcage is not okay, but yeah, again, like the game has matured since then. A lot of people have found the counterplays, and at the end of the day, like she's not like outside of Ribcage, she's still like a reasonable character in Central Fiction's context, right? So, and she can't have Ribcage active for the entirety of the round. It's for a temporal amount of time. So,
Well,
yeah.
EGP, even though Kurushii has downplayed Carl, we saw Excalibur Blades take a TNS and a major within 2 quick weeks after this announcement. What do you think of that?
I'm so I actually didn't know about this until I saw the G Unit video about the character they were calling for the Carl ban. I'm actually not completely against character bans just because at this point in the game's life cycle, the game is basically just run by the community at this point, right?
True.
So the community does have to set, the rules of the game basically because well, we're never getting another patch for CF, right? As far as we know, right? And I
They're
think that
updating entropy effect.
I,
But
I
yes.
don't know if is that a fighting game? It's like a beat 'em up, right?
It's basically a fighting game. It's just single player.
Okay. Yeah, so if it's like a community run event, then you would want to set your rules on like, especially because there's no tournament, not tournaments, there's no patches that are going to come up from Arxis to like nerf or fix whatever is going on in the game. So if we find so if you find something completely busted or something that like breaks the game, then I feel like the community should have the right to. Um,
They never do though. Like
mm,
we've had the possibility of doing ratio in Marvels for a long time, and like basically no one does it. It's just a sporting event, like a one-off thing.
yeah. So when I did play Carl, I played him mostly like casually in BlazBlue, CF. I thought he was really fun, and I did kind of think like, man, he is like a public character that is basically let's say like the training wheels are off, and you basically can like do things with him that you can't do with other public characters just because of how freeform he is. And so I can see like especially I could see how like busted that can get. I've seen the Infinite in like the first BlazBlue game. That game is much older. That's not Central Fiction. Um, and I do
Calamity
think
Trigger.
Carl is definitely, even though I did play casually, I could definitely see how this character could easily be in the top five, maybe top three. I don't know the meta now, so I don't want to say, oh, he's like the most broken, but I did see like there's the potential for him to be broken.
He's always
Um,
been placed high in every tier list, even though there's never anyone playing him.
yeah, and I think maybe before you call bans, maybe wait it out a bit, see if he's actually kind of crazy. I mean, I
Tier
think
8, bro.
yeah, I would say like with character bans especially, those ones, it's kind of it should be reserved for like really harsh cases. And BlazBlue is definitely a game where they definitely reward that kind of they would definitely reward you for putting in execution and getting out massive combo damage or reward or the most evil set play you've ever seen. And I don't, and I think Carl is not that much stronger than everybody else. Um,
No,
unless
I think for
is
bands you
everyone
need to
agreeing?
see. I think for bands you need to see more than one in a top 8 here and there. Like you have to see 4 or 5 in a top 8. Like
I
could
also
City of the
think
Wolves ban some people? Maybe.
character bans can also be placed for extremely, extremely strange strategies that are basically considered not fun by anybody. But those are just like really weird cases. Basically, the character doesn't have to be like super broken for someone to ban, in my opinion. If there's some like game-breaking bug or something that just, or I don't know, the bug turns the game into just like I don't know, mahjong for some reason, then you maybe think for a ban. But I think Carl fits in, the um, kind of plays. He fits in with the BlazBlue play style, so or like how that game is played. He doesn't. I'd say like um, maybe he. Yeah, that's a little that's how I put it.
Yeah, I mean it's a very free form game, and that Carl is the ultimate expression of it. You can move 2 characters around and pretty much play with a two full move sets. Um, just one of them takes a little meter, gets a little hungry, but yeah, it's he's a great expression of that game, and it's definitely a game where they're just the bullshit overrunneth, and you can easily pin Carl down and squeeze the life out of him. So it's not like he has some broken thing. He has to set up on you. You have to allow
Yeah,
that to happen.
that pupper meter he has though is very generous, I will say. It is very rare you'll run out, in my opinion, if you know what you're doing.
That's true. That's compared to Zato, where he takes a jab, or Eddie takes a jab, and it's over. It's over.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Is that like you have to really beat up? I think the puppet's name is Nirvana
Yeah, Nirvana.
for them to be desummoned. While if you hit Zato's puppet one, usually puppet characters they only take about 1 or 2 hits to destroy. It's just Carl that's the weird one. In exchange, you do have to manually control this puppet. And move it wherever you need, and manually move the puppet compared to like someone like Zato, where he's more on rails, and as the games go on, he where Shrive, where you never really have to move him too much.
Yeah. Also, the puppet requires negative edge, whereas most other puppets you can get by without negative edge, even though it helps you to layer commands. Carl completely requires negative edge. So let's hop over to our poll for a second. We have 3 tied for the second to last place. We have Nier, who we talked about. GBVS. Ever since her nerf, I have not heard hide nor hair of her. She's really been gone. Then we have Devo from Heritage for the Future. Some people consider this the original puppet character. Even though there's actually a lot of sandwiches from everyone who has a stand in Heritage for the Future, but this guy actually has a actual like puppet. Is that part of being a puppet character? If your puppet is an actual puppet, because they don't all have that. Not everyone has that. But he has a guy. I think Devo might have been a little higher if Heritage for the Future, had less slurs in Fightcade chat or was a little more popular. And then finally, the last tie was Mario from a game called Melty Blood Type Lumina. I haven't heard of that. Is that a fighting game?
Rumor has it.
I don't. Did you ever play any of these EGP?
So I played a little bit of Grand Blue, and then when I did play the free version of Rising, when they made all the characters like free for a weekend, I did try Nier, and I had a lot of fun with Nier.
Okay.
I could tell this was not the prime version of the character. This was definitely a little nerfed, a little less control, but it was still fun. And then I have played Devo in Heritage for the Future, and that game you everyone's kind of a puppet character.
A
Your
little bit,
guys'
yeah.
definition wouldn't fit that. But Devo is probably the most in line with someone like Zato. You have the most control of the puppet. Usually, if you're playing JoJo, usually you only get control of either the stand or the main character. At once. You never control both. But with Devo, you are controlling two kind of at the same time. Um, and I did think Devo was if I were to play Heritage for the Future, I would probably pick Devo. Um,
It's pretty cool.
I don't know about the I don't yeah 5K is a little it reminds you of Xbox in terms of the chat, but
Yeah, it's captured the essence of the old era.
yeah,
Um,
I did have fun with those characters. Not as much control as Carl, a little more control than Relius though. So that's how I describe those characters.
EGP is, of course, if you haven't guessed already, a puppet character master. Tends to play puppet characters in a lot of different games. If I kick it to if Kurushi's still here, Kurushi, why or why not play puppet characters? You've avoided them a little, even though you like characters with a lot of execution.
I haven't avoided them in certain games. Actually, back in Continuum Shift Extend, I learned a little bit of Carl Clover in that game.
Uh,
But it's hard to use them in a real match. Like, but in training mode, it's a lot of fun. Anyway, why using them? Um, it's a degree of complexity that I think stimulates a lot of people, especially the fighting game crowd. That's the kind of thing that attracts them to the games themselves. I think there's a lot to explore just within the character themselves that allows you to some degree be a rule breaker, ignore some parts of the systems, maybe disregard things that you would otherwise have to learn in other characters. And that's definitely something that can be used as a competitive edge since, it's your opponent that has to deal with the puppetry at the end of the day, not as much you. You're playing the puppet game, the opponent's playing perhaps a different game that's a bit on a lower tier of a layer because, puppets oftentimes don't have to interact with the system mechanics. So I think that's like a pretty strong reason to play a puppet character.
it's the
Or,
ultimate
if you
form
just
of
like,
set play.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and hey, I think some of these anime games do it best. I do think Monot was a cool implementation though in SF5. Too bad it was SF5.
EGP, what's the reason for your puppet love?
So a couple things. I first of all just like execution. I think it's really fun to do in general. And I also really enjoy like micromanagement for some reason. So I've always said to people that if I didn't get into fighting games, if it was a different era, I probably would have played like StarCraft. Um, and I just love the idea of just playing, having control over multiple like characters at the same time. So for me, that's why I really enjoy fighting game characters. So they combine those two aspects of not only execution, but also controlling, microing a unit, or sometimes the character will have multiple puppets, but usually the puppet characters in fighting games only have one.
You're playing a beat 'em
And
up. You
also,
want more people on the screen.
yeah, and also usually if the game isn't balanced the best, they are broken as hell. So I love broken characters, and it is kind of crazy to, put in a lot of work for combo setup, set play, execution, and once you get that ball rolling, a lot of people will complain about your character.
That's why it's crazy that Puppeteer in DNF was not OP. It's like everyone in this game is cracked out of their mind, and you make the puppet character kind of lame.
Yeah, I think you'll start to. I think in a lot of like really like, uh, I think in a lot of games, they introduce the puppet character. They're really broken and break system mechanics, like you guys said, and then they do usually get nerfed, and usually it's not worth putting in all that work for like okay reward.
Hmm.
But if you were to put those puppet characters in another game, they might break the system. I think, if Manat had more control over her orb, it might break Street Fighter 5 even more than it's broken right now.
Speaking of broken, we have our fourth place with 2 votes. It was Zappa from Guilty Gear. To quote Zenryoko, the dog has infinites off of normal hit, tanks burst, gives Zappa 1 hit of super armor on anything, operates independently of Zappa, and has bite, which is really funny, and can activate while Zappa's in blot stun, giving high, low unblockables, and it's invincible when not attacking. Yeah, those all sound like bullshit reasons, Zenryoku. That's a bullshit character, and I'm glad he only got 4th place. But that's plus R. That is a very plus R ass character. Uh, Related to this, EGP, do you think we'll ever see puppet characters again? It seems like a lot of them these days are legacy characters that are a little toned down. It seems like the ethos of we're going to put something that really breaks the system in has sort of died off. I wonder, like, will Street Fighter see another puppet character? Will, future KOFs ever see one? Will even future anime games see puppet characters that are, seriously integrated?
Short answer, no. So not only is it a balancing nightmare for the developers to try to figure this out, but also they have a really low, play rate. So even though like if you do like Blaze with CF for example, Carl is not the most popular character, right? He has a pretty and any fighting game actually, public characters usually have a low pick rate just because people don't want to put in that work, or people it does intimidate people. And so if you and I also think they're kind of like pretty like tough to design, right? So I think that because of the low play rate, because developers don't want to deal with that nightmare, I don't think we're gonna see anyone like complicated. I think they more so prefer public characters where they're on rails, where you could start arguing they're not even public characters anymore. A little more easier to balance at that point.
That's a great point. They probably require a really significant investment. I bet they were really exciting when they first started making them and they could even like make them work and it was a design challenge. But now that they exist, it's probably not as exciting to make one, but still a ton of work.
Yeah, and at least for Zappa, we just talked about Zappa. He is an interesting case because he has 3 different like summons he can use. The dog is I consider a puppet character. The ghost and the sword, I'd more consider them zoners just because Zappa kind of doesn't do much when he's using those other two.
Yeah.
And the ghost is, oh my god, whenever he summons ghost, it looks like a bullet hell game. It doesn't even play like a fighting game at that point.
Yeah, I hate those stupid little golf balls. Why are they so small?
Those golf balls always destroy Zata, or I guess Eddie's shadow for me. So I can't stand those golf balls.
We're in the Zato haters club, don't you worry. Kurushii, do puppet characters have a future?
No. Modern fighting games are doomed, and puppet characters are okay. I don't think puppet characters necessarily don't fit in modern fighting games, but I basically because modern fighting games have been on the downturn with like incorporating complex characters, like as a consequence of that, puppet characters are probably gone for good. Now, maybe 2XKO can potentially fix that, but that game has a whole other slew of issues that
Is there a lead
are
character that's a puppety kind of character?
Echo to some degree. Ari a couple of builds ago, I don't remember when, but I think it was before. I think it was at the Evo 2023 build. Slightly a public character, not even really, but um, you know, yeah, it's not even the best example. I think modern fighting games don't really have puppet characters any longer.
It doesn't look like they want them. It doesn't look like they want people that break their rules. It seems like they want the mechanics, and then here are your flavors.
Yeah, to be fair, it's a lot of work to learn the matchup when you're playing against the public character, so it's understandable. If you want to make it esports friendly, you make it less to learn.
Just block, bro.
So that, yeah, exactly. well, that's a. Oh, I was gonna mention this earlier. EGP mentioned, I think, like banning characters is fine in some cases. I can actually agree with that. I think Arakune should have been banned a long time ago. But what do I know? What do I know, man? Blaze. I mean, okay. To be fair, BlazBlue players kind of agree on this. Like Arakune is a messed up character, but it's just that if he's not in curse, he does nothing, right? But he just has to hit you once, and you're full curse, and you just die.
But Blaze
So
Blue has a lot of characters where you got to get them first. That's just the
yeah,
thing.
yeah. But if I had to ban one character in BlazBlue, it would definitely be Arakune before Carl.
He has quite a win state change, and arguably also becomes a puppet character at that point. He gets lots of friends, big and
Yes.
small.
Lots of bugs.
Yeah, I
Lots
would ban
of
that character
bugs.
definitely.
I think if you're a fan of Starcraft Zerg, I think you would probably like Arakune.
Zerg Rush. He was not in our poll. Our third place goes to a three-way tie. One is Kenshi from Mortal Kombat. So we actually had a Mortal Kombat 1 representative. No one played it, of course. And then Relius from Blaze Blue also tied here at third. Relius is just cool. It's cool. And then Shadow Labrys, who I think is the coolest character in Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. That puppet, I don't think you can jab. It's always kind of hovering around, but it does need to like take a break sometimes. Its moves are very slow, but it's a huge fuck off minotaur that's like the size of the screen, and you can like load in these like screen destroying lasers and something like that. That game's pretty extra though. It's a pretty good anime game. I hope one day they make P5A, but we'll see if that ever comes to pass. Did you ever try any of those, EGP?
I have played all three at some point.
Oh.
I think I've played Kenshi the most out of those three.
Oh yeah?
I thought he was really fun because
It's really cool.
you could use negative edge, and you can also all of his specials on the puppet to control it. You either use a motion input or you can use negative edge. So you could use both. So it was really nice. It did get a little messy. Sometimes you would want to do something and then you negative edge something else. And he did play a lot like Exerdatsu in my opinion. The way you control him, the way the puppet works, how you kind of set up things. And he only really had like 4 attacks, so he wasn't as complicated as someone who has like a giant move list.
Mm-hmm.
But he was probably he's unfortunately the only NRS character that I enjoy playing. Cause I know people like MK10, not people like don't like 11 as much, but when I go back and play those games, I can't find anyone I enjoy, unfortunately, because Kenshi is just too fun.
Puppet Purist. You played some
I
Relius, I assume?
Which one?
Relius?
Relius? Yeah, I did try Relius. So when I was picking up BBCF, I tried Relius and Carl. I definitely preferred Carl more.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely have more control over the puppet because Relius, you can't really move the puppet necessarily.
No.
You kind of whenever some attacks from the puppet will move the character, but that's not what you're trying to do necessarily.
Yeah, and you have to use meter to do it. It's a little more like Zato and Strive.
Yeah. But he was fun. I do like his design a lot actually. I've always said like if you know I would take a character in BlazBlue. Like my dream character would be Relius, but you had Carl as a moveset basically.
Oh, that'd be cool. And you played
Yeah.
some Shadow Labrys?
Yeah. So I forgot who it was, but they were like they were like a really good Persona player, and all they would do was say Shadow Labrys is broken, Shadow Labrys is broken, and so when I did play Shadow Labrys, I can confirm she's broken as hell. I'm trying to remember. There was a couple of moves. I think everyone has a DP in the game. I think it's a
Yeah.
universal mechanic,
Uh-huh.
but I think she just has a DP in the game. Like, and that is something that's like a forbidden move. You never want to give a public character.
Does seem to make people complain.
Giving a public character a reversal or giving them a lot of defensive options or any defensive options is basically a way to just make a puppet character broken.
She has a big sweeping one too that's like a DP. Like some of the characters they gave like really crappy reversal moves. Like some of the attendants have like a grab sort of thing that's really easy to whiff. They gave her a good one. It's like a half screen get off me.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I think the puppet actually doesn't die that fast either. So you kind of just have all the upsides of having a puppet, right? And
It's
not
hard
a
to
lot of
attack it.
downside.
It like doesn't sit on screen. It's
Oh,
only when it's attacking can you take a card away.
okay, yeah. I just remembered like I didn't have a lot of trouble of it dying because if you ever play Zato, he dies a
Yeah,
lot and it
gets jabbed a
screws you
lot.
over. And also, she had a lot of big hitboxes too, which you kind of necessarily don't want to do with puppet characters. You kind of want to have this idea where the puppet and the character are working together, and the hitboxes are probably shouldn't be the biggest on characters, at least the main character. But yeah,
Let's
Shell
just
Lips
ban
was
them.
like
Let's ban
kind
all
of right.
puppet characters. I think that's the easiest way to deal with this. We'll just
Yeah,
ban
that
them.
seems like what developers are doing. Now I don't
Anyway,
think we've.
yeah. Shadow ban.
I think the last like true puppet character people would say we've seen is Nier and Granblue. Um,
Yeah, that might be it. We'll see if we ever see one again. Kurushii, assuming we do, what are your tips for fighting puppet characters? How do we beat these motherfuckers?
Uh, First of all, going in with the character needs to be banned mindset is a very bad mindset. That is not how you beat the puppet character. That is how you wimp out and become a worse fighting game player
Oh
because you're
no.
lazy. Um, how you beat the puppet character is first of all realize that you're not gonna block everything. You're gonna get opened up inevitably, and the best advantage you can seize is in the neutral interactions. Make sure to play intelligently and know how your character interacts with whatever puppet is on the screen. I think especially applies for Chaos and Uni 2. A lot of people get too impatient and get too antsy and fail to deal with Chaos adequately before going in. They made it way easier to do that in Uni 2 because you can kill Ozzy with A normals. Quick tip for those of you that play Uni 2.
Oof.
You can kill Ozzy with A normals. I'm sure most of you knew that already though. And then you can approach Chaos himself as long as you are watchful of his disc projectile. So yeah, just in general, take a calm approach in neutral. Neutral is actually where I feel like you have the best fighting chance, apart from of course when you have the offense. But when you're on defense, know that inevitably you will get opened up, and just do your best to reduce those possible situations as you can.
So make them overcommit rather than making yourself overcommit.
Yep, exactly. Because they're eventually going to run out of resources, right? So, hmm
EGP, any tips to letting us get in other than jabbing Eddie?
I would not like to reveal my secrets, but I will. Yeah. So if
They're
it's a
banned
puppet character
anyway, so
where, yeah, if there's a puppet character where the puppet dies real fast, light, you want to use just real fast attacks just to get rid of it, right? So just get rid of it on the screen. Because usually once you're done dealing with the puppet, the character by themselves is not very strong. And they're kind of playing like a half-baked character at that point. Um, and if you're someone who also plays multiple characters, consider abusing matchups. I know at least for plus R, Eddie, um, he's called Eddie by the way, not Zato in that game. In case people didn't know.
Zato's sleeping.
I think his one of his worst matchups is probably Baiken, and because Zato's so good at putting you down in is it called
Blockstone.
block stun all the time. Baiken excels at that, at getting out of block stun. And so, if you have a really good matchup against a public character, please abuse it. It makes their life hell, and make them and it makes kind of a lot of their times spent with the public character kind of worthless sometimes.
Who counterpicks Carl in BVCF? What do you
I
think?
wouldn't know. That's the thing.
Nobody knows. Nobody's figured it out yet.
Also say public characters in a lot of games have like pretty shit defensive options. You'll notice this. So once you take out a puppet, and if you ever lock them down, it's very simple because their defensive options are so bad. Usually they don't come with DPs. Usually don't come with reversals. I think if you're playing Persona, you're screwed though because everyone has a DP in that game.
Yep.
Usually they don't like have like armor or anything, and usually they die really fast if you have a game where people have different health bars. Um,
So spend and squeeze them once you get in.
yeah, and also if you're in a giant sandwich combo, don't panic out. That's they kind of want you to freak out and break your block, right? Sometimes you and sometimes you'll just be put in unblockable situations. I know Carl and Blaze was notorious for having um, true unblockables in the game where you'll see the exclamation point for overhead and that you know it was in a situation where you actually couldn't block.
Speaking
But
of
yeah, stay calm
Carl,
and block.
Speaking of Carl, he is our second most popular puppet character. He didn't win, maybe because the all of the bad press right around the time of the poll that came out about how he was destroying Blaze Blue. But he came in second. A lot of people like the cut of his jib, and if you play him once, I think it's self evident how cool he is. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you have a comment on that, Kurushi?
Yeah, I was gonna say I do think that poll is people made a mistake in their vote. Carl should have definitely been number one there, and number two is just the wrong vote. But yeah, in seriousness, I do think Carl is like one of the most wonderfully designed characters in any anime fighting game. And I feel like he's like the quintessential puppet character. I feel like he's the role model for how puppet characters should be designed. Sadly, I don't know if he'll be made use of as a role model because I don't think we're getting many puppet characters from here. But that being said, if I were to like make a fighting game and try to make a puppet character my game, I'll definitely look at Carl and feel like, okay, how do I make a Carl but like a little bit more balanced, and then use him as a framework and work from there. Like, I feel like it's such a just cool character, and playing him
In
is a lot of fun too. Yeah.
in Blaze Blue Strive, you will press D, and Nirvana will come in from the side of the screen and do one swipe.
Yep. No manual movement either.
No.
They'll remove that.
Yeah. So Carl is cool, and I also agree that he is sort of the the final evolution of puppetdom. He just has so much freedom. There's so much stuff you can do. He's very cool. The puppet has a fireball.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Very strong one at
It's
that.
totally crazy.
Yep.
And a command grab. The puppet has a command grab. So, that's pretty messed up.
I
Eddie, of
think
course, has some messed up stuff too.
I think what's kind of crazy about Carl is something that people don't talk about is that um, it's kind of hard to see if the puppet's off screen. It's kind of hard to see what they're doing too. So sending that fireball from far away can really mess up your opponent.
Yeah, they're always doing the Marvel thing where they go off screen and they do something to you. Incomings. I don't know how much advice Kurushi has on this, but for EGP, what can you tell us to get good at puppet characters? I guess the legacy ones that are in the old games we play.
I'd say first of all, just be prepared to just put in a lot of time and execution and setups and labbing and set play because I mean, if you play a puppet character, you kind of know what you signed up for. Just be prepared. You're going to be spending a lot of time. If you're doing negative edge, I think it's possible on pad technically, but it is easier when you have a giant fight stick with big buttons in order to manipulate. I
It's a
think it
little
would
hard on
be
pad. I can verify that.
yeah. I don't play fighting games on pad, so I wouldn't know. Um, do get used to. I think there's not a lot of games in general where negative edge is kind of a concept.
It's become much less
Uh,
common.
yeah, so make sure you're practicing that. I know for Carl, at least, anytime I've hit a normal button with Carl, like A, B, or C, I am always holding down D and activating the puppet, moving it in some direction, um, just to make sure, the puppet can catch up with me, or I can input some command. and there was another trick with Zato, and just be aware of like, you want to do a lot of research too. Just be aware of like some small tricks. For example, holding down versus down back and down forward. That might not seem significant, but if you're playing Eddie, for example, that's the way to move the shadow while Zato stays on the screen in the same place. For example,
Oh,
and
nice.
take care of your hands. These characters will destroy your
I
hands.
was gonna ask you, is that true? Is that rumor true?
Yes, they will. Um,
Oh
don't
no.
underestimate. Um, I guess any execution heavy characters or any game with like timing for that matter. Like I imagine rhythm games as well. Um, those do take a toll on your hand. Take breaks. Make sure you're doing your stretches. Um, I haven't played a fighting game in a bit, so I haven't actually had some problems with my hands. But I remember when I was playing a lot of Tekken and not Blaze, Guilty Gear, my hands were always always exhausted.
No, your fingers are your most important puppets.
Yes.
Is that why you quit Carl, Kurushi?
Uh, I quit Carl because I couldn't figure out how to. So I was trying to learn the dash super jump, and I couldn't figure out how to do it facing the left side. So I gave
Oh,
up. Because I play on arcade stick. For those of you that are wondering why that matters, play on arcade stick, and it's significantly easier to bump the lever than to like flick it with your thumb. And you have to flick it with your thumb when you're doing any like lever movement to the left, whereas to the right you can just bump the lever right, which is really easy.
hmm.
So I couldn't figure out how to do it facing left, and I was like, ah, I give up.
That's crazy.
But he's still really cool.
All right, well, we're winding down here. I'm going to go to our number one, which you've probably already guessed. The champion of coolness, it is Zato, or maybe Eddie, depending on what version you play. He got nearly double the votes of Carl, actually. And what can I say? Zato is pretty cool no matter what version he's in. He's an Edgelord 9000. Dude's blind, and he beats the shit out of you. Um, he's got a hot snow bunny girlfriend. He can sandwich all day. His plus R version has like so many moves. I can't even tell what the hell is happening. He's got so much variety. It's crazy. And his Strive version is really cute. Whatever you think of Strive, they really they knocked it out of the park on design there. So he's the number one. He is the flagship puppet character for the future. I know you are primarily a Eddie player, EGP. So if you have any words, if you want to glaze your main here, now's the time.
I think I prefer Eddie over any version of Zato. That's to say it lightly. Funny thing is that if you've ever played the first Guilty Gear Missing Link, Zato's not really a puppet character in that game. He's more of a zoner in that game. It's pretty interesting. I think I I don't know remember which Guilty Gear it was, but eventually they did kind of change him into the puppet character we know today.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah, you had
um,
just like big normals and stuff like that. I kind of remember that. I did play Missing Link a little.
yeah, I enjoy his design. I love controlling the puppet. You don't have as much control as someone like Carl. Um, I think Carl's definitely more complicated. But what control you do have is really fun. What setups you have is also really fun. And Zato by himself is not complete dog shit. You can, of course, he's not good. If for some reason you couldn't summon the puppet, he would be the worst character. But he's not completely useless. He is able to do just enough in order to summon the puppet. Um, and then starting block shrink combos and doing all these messed up stuff.
I
And his Shrive incarnation, probably which most people are familiar with, um, is unfortunately not really the same as the other versions of Zato. I guess you could say that with all of Shrive, but he's definitely um, the least difficult. You have less control. and he's not very good, unfortunately. Or I guess fortunately, some people would be happy to see this character go to hell.
He was fine, and they nerfed him. They're like, Gobu won like one thing, and they're like, "That's it, you motherfucker. You can never fly. Flight comes down in 1 second now."
Oh yeah, speaking of flight, Zato can fly for some reason. I'm not sure why he should. It's more used in like combos than anything. You never really need to fly for anything.
I feel like every great puppet has some like one or two kind of crazy moves. In Strive, Zato has that defense move, oppose, which you can cancel out of, which is kind of crazy. What's your favorite Eddie move?
Mine is in plus R. It's the move that basically regens his shadow meter, so you can just keep using it over and over again. The shadow meter is such a necessary resource for him to do anything with the puppet, right?
Hmm.
So if you can regenerate that meter in any kind of way, which it's pretty easy to do in plus R, it makes that character just so much more potential. Uh,
EGP doesn't
compared
want to
to
unsummon. He doesn't want the
I'm
party to stop.
yeah. That's also what's strange about Trizato is that you only do a couple moves with him and then he's
You
gone,
gotta
and
get
then
him
you
Yeah,
going.
I was
to go
I was gonna
back.
say Strive Zato feels more like a set play character than a puppet character. Honestly, I was gonna say that. Yeah, because you don't really have like a lot of time to even make use of Eddie as a separate entity.
Yeah, you
So
really try to break him down with drill, and then you get in there.
yeah, I feel like he's more like a setup or set play character rather than a puppet character. Strive, that is.
Yeah, and it's so easy to jab. You can't cover him at all in that game.
Hmm. Dumb down baby game.
You have a favorite puppet move for Kurushii?
Ooh, favorite puppet
Yeah.
move. So in BBC or not CF, just BlazBlue in general, the idea of being able to teleport to your like
I know
implement
which
that you
move
put
this
on the
is.
ground. Yeah, so okay, Kokono has an example of this with the gravitons. She's not a pup character, obviously, but you can teleport to her graviton where no matter where it is on the screen. For Carl, it would be the ability to call the puppet to like basically you teleport the puppet to you. Um, it's really cool. I think the idea of like getting like a fast method of movement for your puppet, uh, it it not only eliminates like having to manually move them all the way across the screen if they're like on the opposite end, but it just reminds me of like fast travel in a Metroidvania because that's what's been my obsession of late. And I think also whenever you're able to like get the puppet in a position that is like immediate, it forces the opponent to really respond with something in the same immediate, and that can put them in more situations than not in an uncomfortable position.
It's
So
a
I
it's
think
really a relief in that game too, because the screen space is so big, and they can knock you
yeah,
literally like 3 blocks away from your special friend, your sister, and then get ready
yeah,
for some real man-on-child violence. And if you can get just a little breather, you can bring Nirvana back in.
yeah. So like they basically gave the character like a fully functioning move set for all the needs. Like if you need to call your puppet to you, you can do that. If you need to move them manually, you can do that. You can still sandwich, you can still command grab, you can still throw a projectile. Like it's a fully functioning move set.
You're still gonna have to
So
stand up to your dad yourself, though.
right, yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
I like all the
Go
funny
ahead.
overheads they like to give puppet characters, just so that they can make that sandwich worth it. Like Relius has
Yeah.
the overhead tickler that comes out of his spine or whatever, just to fuck you up for trying to block his pressure. Um,
Yeah.
Zato has similars like 6K and things like that. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think those
You
moves are
know,
funny.
on that note, I feel like Lychee is so close to being a puppet character if she just had more moves for her staff. But because her staff can just only launch, and that's about it, then you don't really get much else. But she does have the same concept where you do overhead, what's it called? The like she has like the 4D and 6A, I believe, the standing overheads.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you have if staff launch is ready, or like, I don't think you can do it off 4D, but if staff launch is ready, then you can like combo off of those a lot more easily, or it can make them safer plus. Or if it's not ready, then you have to rely on maybe sending out the projectile like shortly after that to get some neutral space back.
She can
But
turn
yeah, I
her
feel like
staff into a literal dude also, but missed opportunity. You don't get to
true.
give it any commands.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like actually Great Wheel as well, die sharding, which is the one where you can do some inputs and cause the staff to like charge in that direction
Mm-hmm.
based on the input. I feel like that move, Bacon and Overdrive, actually reduced its potential more because I thought it was really cool back in Continuum Shift Extend. You can spend the 50 meter on going for like a bunch of mix-ups because you input, like basically you input the staff preemptively, and then you do like a couple of attacks. Maybe like you do a full jump. It's like the standard like Guilty Gear mix-up where you do a dash jump in their face, and then you do like a really late air dash as you're about to land, and then you do a couple overheads.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something similar to that. I kind of wish that she could still implement that to the same degree, but of course, with it being tied to overdrive now, it's a lot more limited in its usage outside of combos.
Have you considered drive rushing in?
You
That
know
sounds
what?
complicated.
If they gave, well, I mean, to be fair, they kind of gave Carl like a pseudo drive rush with his roll, right?
Yeah.
You do Nirvana with the super armor attack, and then you just roll.
Yeah, I mean, Nirvana's like drill is basically drive rush. It's coming off the screen, across the
Yep.
screen, and it's gonna hit you.
Yeah. So yeah, functionally he has something like that.
Well, any last words for our puppet brethren? They're a fun class. I can say they make the fighting games exciting and interesting. They represent a sort of age of creativity that we've sort of we're in an age of polish right now. We're not in an age of creativity. Hopefully, we'll see more of them again in the future. Um, but they're cool. They're all pretty cool. Any last words from you guys?
Um, yeah, I think for me, you know, I'm in a way it's kind of just saddening that we lost the spirit of puppet characters after games like Blaze Potential Fiction subsided. But the spirit lives on if you still play those games competitively. And I do think for one, like if you wanna like just spend some time in training mode and look for like a way to time sync just in the lab, puppet characters are the way to go. So, and it helps you just learn the matchup as well. So don't be afraid, don't be intimidated. Sit down and learn the character, and you'll get some results.
Hit the lab. EGP, any last thoughts here on your career choice as a puppet master?
Yeah, I love puppet characters, but I get all the hate. I get why they won't make them anymore. We lab out war crimes, and we expect people to just block and deal with them, and you know they're pretty low pick rate too. You'd be surprised of usually people who play one puppet character play all the puppet characters, just because you really have to like a certain style to really want to put in that time to lab and everything. And that's probably why we only have three people in this podcast right now.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm not even a puppet player. I'm being puppeteered by these two. Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks, EGP. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
Thank you, Kurushii. Good talking to you as always.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
All
Thanks for
right.
joining EGP.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. This has been the Ursine Combo Lab audio. We'll be back with some other inane topic at some point. So tune in then. And you're always free to, come join us on here or contribute to our whatever we're doing. We're a community podcast, and we look forward to talking